Hey everybody, welcome back to This Is Us Tuesday. We are going to kick this thing into high gear and try to make up some ground in this story. For those of you that are still hanging on there, appreciate it. We left off August of 2013. Em and Kyle had come back from college. We had gotten our contract earlier in that year for 3 years, and when we first started our business, we did everything, made sure everything was completely above board, and made sure that there's no way we're gonna get in trouble for anything or do anything wrong. So we had hired an accountant and an attorney, incorporated our business, and we had everything was just completely, protected the best it could be because we'd been down that road before and we didn't want to go near anything that was resembling any kind of trouble. One of my mom's sayings, she had a lot of sayings, and we had gotten a 3-year contract. We had a 3-year plan. We were gonna try to pay all of our restitution back, be completely debt-free, pay our house off, and have a little bit of money in the bank because we didn't know if anything was gonna be promised beyond that point. And so one of my mom's sayings was,
the brass ring may only come around one time.
And so, we didn't know if we were gonna get another chance. Like, we felt like we had pretty much hit the lottery. We had a really good customer, a really good business that was running, and it was profitable, and it was more money than we had ever made in our lives before and would probably ever make again. And so here we are, August, and the kids are back from college, and initially Kyle had moved into our house, into our basement.
Yeah, and he was on the bottom ground, so and our bedroom was on the main level, and then M was on the second level. So they were separated by us, but we never wanted to leave them home alone together, and it wasn't like a good situation. We didn't, like it for Jay and Joey, seeing that we were letting Kyle stay there. And so they wanted to get married, and we said, might as well just go ahead and get married because we don't want them living together and not married. So we went ahead and planned a wedding pretty quickly, and his mom had done that for us when we were younger. We kind of planned a wedding in like 2 weeks, and we got married. Kind of that's what happened with them.
It was really small. It
was just tiny. We planned it really quick, but we had like flowers, a cake, and it was nice.
And they had their honeymoon, was just literally overnight at the hotel that we had the service at. Enjoyed that celebration, got some pictures taken and the whole thing. And so they were official.
And we kind of did like, after the wedding ceremony, we did like a little reception where we gave them like gifts and we played games, like a newlywed game, just for fun. But it was so tiny, so it's just family.
And they initially moved into an apartment, and they rented for a while. And part of our wedding gift to them was, something that we were never able to buy a house. We rented multiple places when we first got married, moved all over the place, and it wasn't until my mom had gotten this bonus and given me some money to help for a down payment. So part of the wedding gift was for them to have a down payment to use for a house. So they kind of held that in reserve, but they started out in an apartment, and so we were still crazy busy with the business. We had initially, as things were progressing, had about 6,000 square foot of warehouse space at our facility in Collinsville. And as the customer grew and the volume grew, we were literally knocking through walls in the warehouse space that was vacant and just occupying more and more space. We went from like 6,000, we picked up an extra 3,000, so we're at 9, and I think we picked up another, 5 or 6,000. And they actually had to have that current tenant, move out of some space that they weren't using. And so we just kept growing, and adding shelves and adding equipment and adding workers. And, it was at that point that we had, probably the most number of workers for the amount of work that we were doing, because we were still just flying by the seat of our pants as far as didn't have a lot of time to catch our breath and put the time in for the processes to streamline things or invest in any kind of technology to make our lives easier. We were just doing a lot of things manually to get it done, but we always got it done. We always got it done ahead of time and met our deadlines and things like that and did it right. So that's what we continued to do. The end of 2013, a couple things happened. First of all, I was doing some research and I discovered a post office incentive for my customer that I thought would be a huge opportunity for them to get a huge rebate from the United States Postal Service. And based on how they were doing things before with the mailings with the little 4x6 postcards, they were now going to be eligible with this EDDM program to qualify for a substantial amount of money, because it was based on how much EDDM they had sent out the year prior and how much they're going to send out the next year. So I got them signed up, I talked to them about it, got them signed up, and it was going to be for the whole year of 2014. Whatever their volume was would determine what their incentive would be as a rebate, and then in 2015 they would receive this money. So I started kind of talking to them about it, and it was a huge deal, and they didn't know how huge it was going to be until we got to that point. But I kind of told them this was going to be a big deal. So we had that, and then it was towards the end of the year. So my mom was, not completely healthy by any means, but she was on the mend, and we were just so busy, and the kids were bugging us to go on a vacation. And so there was a 1 week period, and out of that 1 week, maybe 4 to 5 days, we decided to make a trip. And it was because my customer had some things that they were going to slow down at that time of year, and we couldn't really plan anything. So
Jay kind of took over, and he's always been the kid to do that. And he literally booked the house that we were going to stay in. He booked all the reservations, and he booked everything. He just called and I think he said he was me, and he used the credit card over the phone, and he just literally booked everything. And
so the kids said they wanted to go skiing in Colorado, and one of Jay's friends had been to Breckenridge and talked about it. So they decided, we're going to take a family trip to Breckenridge to go skiing, which we had never done before.
And we almost canceled it because I was Googling and reading how you can get really sick from the altitude, and I was thinking, okay, my head's going to explode or something bad's going to happen to me. And then I had called and asked questions, and I felt better about it. But
so we booked the trip, and the day came, and I of course had to pack a laptop because I still had to work, in the times that I could to kind of keep up, because I was pretty much a one-man show running the whole operation, dealing with my customer and all the orders. So if I didn't do what I need to do, then stuff would stop. And so we got on a plane, and we brought all the kids, we brought my niece and us, and got on a plane, flew to Denver, and immediately rented a Chevy Suburban. Yeah,
it was a big SUV, like a Tahoe, I think.
Our Tahoe, and loaded up all our luggage, and our luggage was huge because we had all the ski gear, and we first time going there, we didn't really know what all we would need and stuff like that. So loaded that all in the car. We were pretty much filled to the brim, and then we're going to drive immediately from Denver up into the mountains to find this house that Jay rented. We didn't know what we were getting ourselves into.
But we stopped at Walmart.
And the area was kind of sketchy.
Yeah.
And we started getting stuff in Walmart, and we get out to the car, we're like, where are we going to put this stuff? So we're getting food and snacks and things like that for this house. And stuff was literally packed up.
Sitting on the kids.
Sitting on top of the kids in the windows, and I'm driving up through the mountains, and it's nighttime. And so anyway, we had to find this rental place to pick up a key and then find the house. And so we end up going there. We're like, this place could be a dump. We don't know what's going on. But we get there, and it's this.
It was really nice.
Really nice house, 3 stories, kind of set off in the little cul-de-sac wooded area setting, and had an elevator in it.
Yeah. It had plenty of space, and it was super nice. And then the kids could see animals outside the window.
It was a fun trip, but we none knew how to ski.
We did not get acclimated. That's what we should have done before we drove straight to Breckenridge from Denver.
Yeah, so we were like, who needs an elevator? It's 3 floors, 2 flights of stairs from top to bottom.
But you can't breathe.
She needed the elevator.
Yeah.
So some of us did fine with the altitude. Kyle and I did fine. I think Joey did fine, but Jay and Em and Stephanie, not so much. And so we were buying cans of oxygen, and they wanted to go to an oxygen bar. I don't know if it really helped any, but we did it. And so we did our little tutorial lesson or whatever on a little bunny slope, and it was just such a slight incline. And Stephanie was a natural.
Mm-hmm.
So we had
also this trip, I was, not that I'm not overweight now, because I am, but I was probably like 40 pounds heavier or 50 pounds heavier. So I think that made a difference too, and how not being able to breathe. And
so we had rented this instructor to kind of show our family how to ski down this little tiny hill, and just how to start and how to stop and stuff like that. And most of us are picking it up. You know, Jay's having a little trouble because he wasn't real coordinated.
And the instructor's like a skinny little guy. Like, he's tiny. And I'm like holding on to him. Like, if I knock him over, he's going to be smushed.
When she says holding on to him, she doesn't mean like this. She means like, help.
And like when we went to eat lunch there, we're all getting like chicken fingers and fries. And he's drinking something out of a little bottle. Like
a little protein shake he takes out of his pocket and squirts it. And we're like, we'll buy you a meal. What do you want? And he's like, oh no, I'm good. This is what I drink for lunch.
So he made us all feel really good.
So that trip, we only stayed for like four days. Like I said, did give ourselves time to acclimate. Wasn't very well planned. Although for a 13-year-old, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
And so then we just came home from that. So I believe it was the end of 2013 as well, where, you know, I'd started getting from our print company as well as our shipping company through UPS would offer us, you know, baseball tickets and things like that, because we started doing a fair amount of business with them. And I knew my main contact with my customer was a huge Cardinals fan. And so I said, hey, you know, I got some tickets, you know, could you make use of these? Oh, absolutely, and everything like that. And found out how big of a Cardinal fan he really was. And so from that point forward, what we did or offered for 2014 is we got in contact with the St. Louis Cardinals, and we bought season tickets. We bought 4 tickets. And so I had an idea that I would buy the whole season and offer it to the company that I represented. They had a group of market managers or reps, and I said, you know, I'll get these tickets and we'll offer them to all of your reps, and each of you pick a couple games that you want to go to. And I said, I don't know how you would handle it, but give everybody a couple tickets, a couple games, so they can take their family and enjoy it. And so I made that offer, and they accepted. But my main contact that I'd, you know, dealt with for the whole time so far, you know, he had the idea of like, well, why don't you just go ahead and drive up the whole book of tickets, and we'll give everybody a chance to select some games, but we'll go ahead and just keep the rest of them, and we'll make use of all the tickets, and we'll do giveaways and, you know, stuff like that. And I said, that's fine, that's not a problem. Because initially I was going to keep like the weekday games, because I figured most people wouldn't drive an hour and a half to go to these games during the week when they're supposed to be working. So anyway, that was my idea, and he took full advantage of that, and I was happy to do it. You know, it was a great customer, and just wanted to do something nice in return for him. And so we did that for 2014. And also in 2014, remember, it was the year of the post office incentive. So that started in January, was going to end the end of December. And I was pretty, you know, excited about that. And we just kept growing and growing. And we were probably doing 4 or 5 million at least pieces per month, maybe approaching 6 million at that point. And, you know, just trying to, at that point, we were starting to come up with some processes and figure out better ways to do things. And so it was able to save us more time and have less labor on the office side of things, and allow us to handle more volume as well. About the spring of 2014, my mom had called Stephanie and said, you know, something's not right. And she's like, what do you mean something's not right? And she just says, I think I'm sick again.
She hadn't been feeling well, and so she went back to the doctor and found out that her cancer had spread and was all over in her body, and they said that she probably would only have like 6 months to live. And so she was like, you know, wanting me to go visit like a hospice house. And, you know, his dad was like, no, you know, he wanted to keep her at the house. She didn't want to die at the house though. And I said, okay, I'll go do it, you know, look at one for her, just because she just kept wanting me and Emily to go check one out to see if it's anything nice or what. So that was real depressing.
But we want to do a couple things for them before things got even worse. And so their anniversary fell in May. And so we planned
like a vow renewal ceremony. She had always wanted to renew their vows. And I guess she had wanted to go like maybe somewhere and do it, but because she was so sick, she couldn't even leave the house really. At that time very much. She was just so weak and always, you know, pretty much laying in bed a lot. And so we kind of surprised her, and I had robes made, and hers we had like stitched on the bride, and then we had his stitched groom, and we did like a cake. We got a cake with butterflies and stuff because she really liked butterflies, and we got flowers and different things like that. We set up chairs and decorate their family room, and while she was in the bedroom, so she didn't even know. And we actually had a person come to renew their vows at their house. So it was really cool because when she came out, somebody was playing music for her to walk down their hallway to their family room, and she was just bawling.
Yeah, so we did that, and then as kind of like, you know, they did the vow renewal. But one thing that my mom always did is she would always procrastinate on certain things. Like she always wanted to go on a cruise, and she had one booked, but when it got close to time, she canceled it because she had probably something come up with work, and so she didn't take the time to do that. And so they had always wanted to go to Hawaii and had never been. So again, we were just so busy and I was the only person running this business. I couldn't be away for any amount of time. And we thought it would be a good idea to also send somebody a little bit, you know, younger to help them to kind of jump and be available to them. And
Em and Kyle hadn't really had like a honeymoon or anything either. And
so we decided to send both couples, Emily and Kyle, and my mom and dad, to Hawaii, and got them on a plane and everything like that. And they got to do some sightseeing, and she went in a wheelchair. Yeah, she wasn't doing great, but at least she got to experience it and see it, and that's something that we wanted to give to them to be able to do. Yeah,
and those of you that follow Em, she's showed or talked about like her tattoo. That's where she got her tattoo in Hawaii.
So Em and Kyle got their first tattoo, both of them in Hawaii on that trip, and that's kind of like a special thing for Emily. The flower that's on her foot is kind of a reminder of that time that she got to spend with Grandma before her passing. So again, 2014, they get back from the trip. We're just trying to push through now this new bad hand that's been dealt as far as the health of my mom, and still crazy busy with the business. And you know, later that year, Em and Kyle had got into their first house. So they had moved out of the apartment that they were living in, and they were in their first home. And so they did that. And then also that year,
they came over to our house one night and said they wanted to tell us something, and we were like, oh geez. And they said, we're pregnant. And I was like, what? Because I wasn't ready to be a grandma, you know? So I thought, no way.
So that was obviously a big, huge deal for us. And it was also like a motivating factor for my mom, because she wasn't supposed to make it that long, but that was kind of like something that she wanted to experience, having a great grandchild.
Yeah, she said, if I can just make it till the baby's born. She really wanted to see Ellery. So Emily had got this countdown to the grandbaby clock, and every day his mom, we would talk and she'd say, how many days? Because she couldn't remember, you know, so like she'd ask every day, how many more days? And so I can remember counting down from literally like 100 days till Ellery was born, and she made it.
And so the end of that year, 2014, my main contact with the company that we did business for, I don't know, I just started getting a little feeling that like what we gave them wasn't enough ever, and we'd given them season tickets. So they also, I think the Cardinals might have made the playoffs that year, and you know, they had the 4 tickets for each game, but he contacted me on the side and said, hey, I'd love to take my boys to the game. We're really huge fans, and is there any tickets you can get and stuff like that? And so I went and got tickets. I didn't have access to any, but I went and bought some and let him have them. And you know, that was kind of like the start for me with that person that he was very forward, I guess you might say, and he wasn't afraid to ask for stuff. And as time goes on, that kind of progressed and grew into like a whole nother thing. So,
and I think you kind of thought he wanted to be your friend at first, because he kind of was like pushing to meet me and like us go out to eat with him and his wife. And I was like, I don't really want to meet him because I don't like to dress up and I don't like to meet people. And so I was like, I'd rather just not. But you kind of talked me into going, and so we dressed up and went out to eat and kind of became like friends. But I'd always tell him, you know, they're not really our friends. They're just doing this because they want stuff. Because the guy would call, hey, it's our anniversary. Could we stay at your house? Like, because at the time we had like a pool house at our old house. So sure, we'd set them up. They'd stay with us.
So it's rounding out 2014. We've had our contract in place for about 2 years. And our goals that we had set out to do, we had paid off, you know, over $500,000 worth of stuff. We had paid our house off. We had stopped going to those appointments at all the counties that I owed restitution. That was completely paid off. You know, so we retired a ton of debt over the course of those 2 years. And we were starting to not just pay off debt, but also save money. I mean, we paid back my parents, anything that they had given us. We paid back her parents for anything that they had fronted us or loaned to us. And so we owed nobody anything. And our business, when we started it, was with that original $1,000. We never got into any debt with our business. That was a huge decision that we made early on, is that we had the potential of buying a printing machine and printing our own material, the volume we were doing, but it came with a whole nother set of issues. There was, you know, skilled workers that had to run it, the insurance, and the machines that we were using to run this were huge. They were like monstrous and take up a lot of space, and they also cost several $1,000,000. And so we wanted to run everything debt-free, keep it lean, and
keep it simple.
Simple and in high margin, because that business was a little bit lower margin. The fulfillment side was where the money was to be made. And so we just stayed laser focused on that. And then towards the end of 14, I think it was, we had seen that there was a auction. It was like a donation to a school, and you got to meet with a prominent business person that's also a TV personality. And so we donated money to his alma mater, and we were able to set up a meeting and have that meeting, and we started a business relationship out of that, and he became a very good customer of ours. So that was kind of neat to be able to do, but also it just helped our business along. Before that and after that, our 100% focus was with our main customer. So this individual understood that, and if there was ever a thing of, you know, getting this order fulfilled or that order or his order fulfilled, we always took care of our customer first. And after that point, we made really no attempts to diversify our business. We were just 100%, 1,000% in on this customer as far as taking care of them, to the point that we would send out more than the required pieces. So if they ordered and paid for so many pieces, we always oversent to make sure that they got a good return, and that there would never be a question down the road, if anything's audited or anything like that, that they got shorted even one single piece. We just did that the whole time that we did business with them and treated them like, you know, gold. The other thing that we did that was a very smart thing on our part is when they printed something and placed an order, but then they had a change on their end, somebody left the company or it wasn't going to get used and they canceled that order, we would take those cards that were printed already and we would take and recycle those and get new cards reprinted with new information, and we would not charge them for that. And there was no other company out there that came knocking on their door to try to take the business away from us that would even open that door or offer that kind of service. So we just went above and beyond to keep our customer happy. And the other thing we did for our customer with these market managers, we had gotten them the baseball tickets. Every Christmas we had a Christmas party. We took really good care of our employees. We loved giving, you know, nice gifts to them and have a nice meal with them. But our customer that we took out to dinner, we started putting kits together and gave them really nice gifts. And the other thing that kind of came into question is these really nice gifts that started to get more expensive as we went along, and more number of them, you know, we always made extra. And my intent was, hey, I don't want to leave anybody out, and if we had extra, we'd just bring that home, and whether we return the items or whatever. And what we found was that my main contact would always hang around after the party, and he would be like, well, who's that one for? You know, we've got in my trunk of my car. And I said, well, that was extra because either so-and-so didn't make it, or, you know, we had too many or whatever. And he's like, well, you know, I could make use of that or whatever. He would just find a way to make it feel awkward where I would feel like I had to offer it to him. And it was usually in a parking lot, which is me and him and nobody around. And I was like, here, sure, have another, you know, gift basket. And it wasn't the traditional gift basket with like fruits and pears. It was nice stuff. So, you know, he took full advantage of that. Now we're into 2015, and, you know, my mom's situation, she's not doing well. She just continues to, you know, gradually get worse and worse. And again, her goal is to just hang on to see her great-grandchild, and knew it was going to be a girl, and that made it even probably more for her because she'd never had a girl, just my brother and I. And so, you know, she was just trying to hang on, and Emily was expecting in at the end of June. And
we were going to have a baby shower for Em, and she really, really wanted to not miss that. She wanted to come so bad. So we had put a chair there. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. Carried like a recliner for her to sit in, and she made it. Your dad got her there, and she was determined to hang on and fight to be there for Em and Ellery.
So Ellery had not yet been born yet, but they had the shower, and, you know, we're in like May of 2015, and so the post office incentive that I had qualified my customer for and signed them up for, it was already calculated, and they were getting ready to get their credit. The other thing that I was trying to do is, you know, I knew that with this huge incentive that I was able to get them. And so they got this in May, $1,750,000 some odd $1,000. So not only were we giving them great service, were we sending out extra cards, recycling and throwing away at no charge cards that they had to make changes on, and also saving them money over what they were doing before and giving them a bigger piece. You know, now we were basically able to give them a rebate through the postal incentive of $1,750,000 plus $1,000, which was huge. And so they, at that point, could not have been happier with how things were going. They were getting good response on their direct mail. And so everything was, running very well. And so at that time, I contacted my customer and I said, we're outgrowing our space. Hopefully we're doing a good job for you and all that stuff. And basically asked them if they would sign another contract because the other one was going to expire in February of 2016. And so their company policy was that they could not go longer than 3 years. And so I made a proposal, and we needed to move into a new building because we outgrew our space, and we kind of seen the path of growth, and we knew that we were going to need a lot more space. And so I think we're around 16,000 square feet. And so we were talking to our landlord, and they were going to put a brand new building up, and we were going to build out a 30,000 square foot office and warehouse space. And it was just going to be for them, basically. In order for us to make that kind of commitment, we were going to have to enter into a 5-year lease. And so I asked them for a 6-year contract because I didn't want to be left holding a lease that was very expensive. And so they said, well, we still can't go longer than 3 years. So what we ended up coming up with is a 6-year contract. But the way it was written was they would give me 3 years from February of 16 to February of 19 with an automatic renewal from February of 19 to 22. They said it's going to automatically renew. You don't have to worry about it. And as long as things are going great, you're good. And this is how we have to write it to make it work. And I said, well, okay, let's do this. And as also part of that agreement, we gave them another discount. And based on our volume, and at that point we figured out some things process-wise, and we invested in some technology and streamlined some things. So we were able to save them more money. And then at that point, we were making 3 cents or maybe starting to make a little bit more than 3 cents per piece at that point. The contract that was given to us was a guarantee of 7 million pieces per month minimum from 2016 on. So we got that contract signed. Then we get to June, and my mom made it. She got to see the baby born, and at that point she couldn't really hold Ellery, but what she did was she was laying in bed, and she'd bend her legs to put her knees up, and she'd say, lay her right here. So she wanted us to lay her in her lap, and we'd have to stay really close because she was too weak to hold her, but she wanted Ellery to lay on her. So we got to take pictures with her, with Ellery and stuff. But so we definitely had some really highs with the business, and then some huge lows as well. So it got to the point where she really should have went to what they call the hospice house or whatever. But
the hospice nurse came in and would make a visit every day to check on her, and we would go make store runs and drop stuff off for whatever they needed and visit. And his dad was pretty much tied down all the time.
Which he wasn't working at the time, and he was with her, and so we would visit and help out any way we could. And they lived just right down the street from us, so we were always back and forth. So her health continued to go, from bad to worse, and she passed away in October of that year, and that was really tough. So I had lost my brother, and then now I lost my mom, and my dad's living a couple houses down the street, and he's just falling to pieces. And we're doing what we can to plan her funeral, help him in all the ways that we could. And after a period of time, I don't know how much time had passed, but a few weeks probably, we made a road trip to see some of his family, and then we also took him, and then we also wanted to plan a cruise that we took him on, and with all the kids, so he got to be around everybody and wasn't at home by himself, just miserable. And so we were having issues on this cruise with our internet. You had to buy so much credits for internet service, and we'd buy a credit or whatever, and it would be gone. And I was like, Jay, can you look at my dad's phone? Because I don't know what's going on, but I have my stuff set up right. She has her stuff. Go see what's going on with Grandpa's phone.
Yeah, the cruise was in March because it was around St. Patrick's Day. We were on the ship for. And Jay came running in our room on the cruise ship, and he's like, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what I found on Grandpa's phone. And I was like, oh geez, I don't know if we even want to know, And we were like, what? And he said he saw that he was on like Senior Meet, and he was on like a dating site, and we were like, seriously? On the cruise ship? Like, it's only been like not even 5 months since she passed away, and he's already like looking. That was just shocking to all of us.
Yeah, so he pretty much very quickly was, I guess, on that scene, and even with the new great grandbaby, he just started kind of like pulling away, and he was like kind of sneaking around and not really telling us what he was up to and things that was going on. And
well, in our family, like his mom would always say, like, there's no secrets. So we didn't have like secrets, everybody, like, pretty much if somebody feels something or if there's something going on, like, so we kind of all called him out on the cruise, like, or asked him, like, we confronted him about it because it's just, we wanted to know, like, and he admitted to it and stuff. And shortly after we got back, the kids started seeing him driving in the neighborhood, and there was a lady in his van, and he was having a lady over to his house already, and soon she moved in, and it was just really hurtful for the kids to see that, and us. I mean, somebody was, I guess, sleeping in the bed that his mom died in. That was just all like kind of a lot for us to take in. And
it didn't happen organically. That was the other thing. Like, it's not like he was, in a church group and he met somebody and just, he didn't plan on it happening. Like, he was actively seeking things out. And also, from October to the first Mother's Day, which would have been May of the following year, I guess the thing that kind of blew up for me was we asked him to be around us for Mother's Day because she was gone, and we knew that would be hard for him, or thought it would be hard for him. And come to find out, he had already made plans to go golfing with some lady. And so he was kind of like living his best life, I guess you would say. And it was just really hard for us. And it was hard to live where we lived because the house that she passed away in, and we saw her being wheeled out, on a stretcher, deceased, was just like 2 houses down on the same side. And we would go for walks, and there was times where we would just, I would just get upset. And at one point I was just frustrated. Like, he was not, it's like he didn't even care she was gone. And I remember picking up like just a rock and just kind of etching in on the driveway my mom's initials. And it made him so mad. And he actually called the police on us, or on me. And again, that was kind of one more thing. It's like, wait a minute, you knew I got sent to prison, and it wasn't like I spray painted your driveway permanently. It was like chat that would wash off, and he's calling the police on me. So it's like he doesn't care if I get in trouble and have to be away from my family for another 18 months or whatever. And so I called him to talk to him about stuff, and he said, I don't want to hear your, I'll just say, crap. And honestly, that's the last time that I've really talked to him. And he doesn't...
I mean, it's unfortunate because he was, when Justin was in prison, he was like, even before you were in prison, I mean, his parents were always like our second set of parents. So his dad was like super close to the kids also, and kind of like a dad to Joey, and always there. And so it really hurt the kids a lot.
And so we kind of got ahead of ourselves again. We're going to kind of back up to, 2015. I got our customer Cardinal tickets, and now my contact, he loved the Cardinal tickets. And come to find out, all those extra games, he was going to a lot of them, and he was giving extra tickets to his parents and his family. And I don't think he really gave me the full story with the company that they were going to disperse them evenly, and everything was being handled that way. He was taking a lot of the stuff for himself. And he also had asked, hey, could we get some football tickets? So then I bought season tickets to the Rams, and he said, this would just be for like the management level, and we'll each get, like 3 games or whatever. And so I was like, okay, I'll get you some tickets. And so I bought season tickets and gave them for the Rams that year, thinking that everything was fine and the company knew about it, and he was a higher up manager telling me that this is okay and this is what's going to be done, so this is what I did. And really pushed more to be our friends. He wanted to meet for meals, and then it was turned into, hey, let's get a box at the hockey game. That would be fun, and get together.
Let's go to the Fox.
Let's go to the Fox to see this show or whatever. And it just got to be more. And it got to be the point where I was like, this is not going to end. Thankfully, in 2016, and I think for Christmas that year, we actually had given all of the reps iPads and a couple other smaller items. And again, he found a way to get an extra box or an extra iPad so that his kid could have the extra iPad. But 2016, my customer turned from kind of like a hometown, small, type of business to more of a corporate, growing business. They started putting things in place and more structure. And one of the things that they did is they put a corporate gift policy in place. And they started restricting what we could do. And at that point, every year we would take the whole marketing group to a opening, or not opening day, but to a Cardinals game and get a box. And we were also given the season tickets, but at that point we could only do the box once a year and no more tickets for any of the games. And then any other gift, like for Christmas, had to be like under $50 per person, because they didn't want there to be any kind of thought that you're bribing your way in or buying the business or whatever. And little did they know, like for me, with the situation with my contact, that was kind of a relief, because it just kept progressing to more. And so again, he was trying to push himself onto us as like he was our friend as well. Not just getting things, but like hanging out, and just wanted to be around more and more. And so in 2016, we're in, towards the end of that year, my contact had gotten demoted. There were some allegations, not related to the gift stuff, but unrelated. And I wasn't there, I wasn't party to it, but he got demoted. And so now his friend that had gone to opening day games with me and been to my office, and I'd been to his, meetings with him and my main contact, his friend was going to take over the relationship. And so one of my big concerns was our, contract, and now we had entered this lease on this huge building, a huge obligation for us. And I had an automatic renewable contract for, 3 years, for another 3 years after that. And he's like, don't worry, so-and-so's going to take care of it. He knows what the deal is. He's going to advocate for you. And as long as you're doing a good job, you're going to keep the contract. So don't worry about it. Just like I told you, you'll keep the business. Don't worry about it. And even his boss had told me, you have nothing to worry about it. So the end of the year, 2016, he got demoted. He was going to make about $30,000 a year less. He was basically crying in our, what's the saying? Crying in our soup.
I don't know.
And we had discussed, like, we're going to keep certain things private, and one of the main things we're going to keep private from him or anybody, unless it came out to a direct thing, we weren't going to say, hey, I'm a convicted felon, by the way. The business was in her name. Everything was above board, but that's just not something we wanted to promote. And so we wanted to keep that kind of like our personal, information, if you will, right? And I was like, let's just tell them, like, I'm fine being open and honest, just to explain to them that, we went through really hard times, and, we are compassionate. We feel bad for you. And we actually had taken 2 gift cards that we had been given from like vendors, and they were like $1,000 each. So $2,000 we had given him to make sure that his family and his small child would have a nice Christmas, and they would be able to pay their bills until they figured stuff out. And the conversation was, we kind of told him what our past was. Also, that conversation was kind of like, hey, if things don't work out where you're at, maybe you could come to work for our company. But we'd have to run it by the customer that you work for to make sure it's okay with them. And man, he latched onto that, and I probably regretted it the moment it left my mouth. And so then that set the wheels in motion that he was going to come to work for our company, Alien Ads. And he wasn't going to be employed by Alien Ads. We were going to start a new company and kind of start back up that shared ad of how we started. And he was going to kind of oversee and open up different areas and recruit people. And we were going to kind of like franchise it out. And so we talked through this whole thing. He's like, yeah. And so we kind of talked back and forth, and he wanted to get a salary based on what he was making before. And he had always been good to me as far as, that relationship. His friend was handling our account, and I just wanted to make sure that, he was taken care of, and he said he would do a good job for us. And so I kind of took him at his word on that. Do you have anything to be added? It's like I'm biting my tongue, right?
Well, it's just a big mistake.
So, big mistake on our part.
Our stupidity.
So, 2017 rolls around. January, this person starts working for our company, and very, very early on, very quickly, the parameters and the job that we had set up for him required him to go out and sell and also recruit and stuff like that. And every single day was, oh, I had to pick up my kid from school, and oh, I had to do this, and oh, I had to do that. Basically, he wasn't going out and working. You all know how I started my business, and I opened up one area in 1 month, another one a second month. He couldn't get one ad sold, let alone open up a whole area. And I knew it was a good deal for the customers, and it worked for me in the past. And with more time passing, 3 cents a house was the same cost I had sold it for, 5 years ago. So I knew it was worth the money and able to be sold. But for some reason, he wasn't selling anything. And so we started having some not so nice conversations, and I was, fair, but not always the easiest person to work for. I had high expectations, and all of these excuses, and for the salary that he was getting, just wasn't going to work out for me. So even though we were making really good money and all that stuff, I still ran everything like a business. I always had to make hard decisions. There was a point in time earlier on where, I had to fire one of my own family members because they just took the job for granted. They weren't there to work, and they were there to get a check, and that didn't sit well with me. And so it for sure wasn't going to sit well in this situation. And so I started talking to him, and the conversations got, heated, that this is my expectation, this is what you said you're going to do, you're not doing it, so on and so forth. In those heated conversations, he comes back to me with a threat. A very serious threat that, I'm going to destroy your business essentially and tell your secret to your customer. And don't think that I don't know a lot of people in high up places still there, that I can't make something bad happen in your, in your business.
And I'm pretty sure we actually have that on like a cell phone somewhere recorded.
And so
that's the funny part.
There was a demand that was made that he wanted. It was somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000.
Yeah, I think it was like $350,000.
He wanted to be paid off and then not work for me in exchange for not going back to my customer, telling my secret of the fact that I was a felon, and destroying my relationship with my customer, and threatened to, put us out of business. And, at that point, Emily had kids, we had our kids, we were, running a good business, we deserved to have the business, we had saved our customer a ton of money, we were making really good money, but, we didn't want to go down like that. And so I actually remember we called all of our kids together, and even though they were still fairly young, Jay and Joey, and then Emily and Kyle, and we had them all together and we said, here's what's happened, here's what's going on. What do you want to do? You know, at that point, that was like,
we're like, what do you guys think?
We can pay this guy off and work out a deal and have our attorney draw something up so he just keeps his mouth shut and leaves our good thing going alone. Or we can stand up for what's right and basically say, we're not going to be blackmailed by you. Go jump in a lake. And
we also talked to our attorney at the time, and he's like, this isn't a secret,
Right.
Just go to your customer and tell them.
So things were really up in the air. We didn't know what to do. We had just been blackmailed by somebody that we were nothing but nice to or good to. And, the demand was basically pay us off over $300,000 so I'm in a good situation, or I'm going to destroy your life. And so I really think that's a good place to stop. And when you come back next week, you're going to find out how that resolved itself, if it resolved itself. And our next episode, as long as we can get through the rest of this, will be our last This Is Us episode. And we'll kind of wind things down and tell you how everything kind of played out and ended. And if you like what you saw, give us a thumbs up. Comment if you have any questions. We've tried to cover as much as we could. But otherwise, we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
When life is much, just